Okay, good morning. We're here for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, November 30th, 2016. And we are here in Courthouse Square in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street Northeast. And we do have one person signed up for public comment, and here he is. Welcome, David. Oh, yeah, that's right. By the end of my chairmanship, I will get this right. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. David, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It wasn't written on here, so
I know, but it's important to me.
Yeah, I know it is. It's important to all of us. Thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it. So, David, welcome.
Need more practice.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I do need practice.
I wanted to be an ambassador for the Marion County State Fair for next year. And I think we can have more service, more people would come for the county fair, for the county, and we can raise a lot of money. So I'd like to be ambassador for the 2 years, be ambassador for the Marion County Fair, and I'd like you to approve that. And I'd like to see more people will ride the bus and go to State Fair.
Okay.
And I want to have the family would come too.
Right. Well, thank you, David. We had a pretty good attendance at the state fair last year. I think county fair was down a little bit. Weather-wise hurt us a little bit, but appreciate your service there.
And I will approve that too.
Yeah.
For the county commissioners.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good to see you always.
Thank you.
So nobody else has signed up for public comment. I'm just making sure.
Why don't you just go ahead? You got the tie on, and I should have. Let's just go ahead and
make a public
Yeah,
comment.
this would be a right place for it.
Wait. Well, it's Victory
Or
Week.
maybe that's public comment enough.
It's Victory Week celebration.
I heard month a minute ago.
Oh, a month, and then somebody said maybe a year. Could be wearing them all year.
Can we talk decade? Is that just?
Yeah, I had somebody say that it'll be a long time before the Beavers get used to winning. And I go, okay, must be a sore Duck fan. There's some riding going on.
Actually, I had a pretty good day. We went to the game. It was wonderful. Reed just won first state
I
title
saw
in a
that.
number of years, and that's pretty big up our
I
way.
saw that. Cascade came close, but didn't quite get there. A
So,
couple good schools. John, did you have a comment? You're punching on your microphone there.
I hope my daughter isn't watching this.
oh,
Oh,
I thought we were going to hear some Kansas thing. Like, who cares? That's what I always try to tell them.
You know what I say to all my good duck friends?
there any?
There are good people in bad places.
All right.
All right.
So that's done. I feel good about it.
Okay. All right. So now we can move on to our presentations. The most important part of our meeting today, because we're going to hear from the Oregon Garden Foundation and in economic development area. So Tamara and Mark Hunter are here to talk about what's going on at the foundation. We were just out there Monday. Had a little planning session out there. It was really good to be on the property. And then also Monday morning, I saw I wake up to KGW a lot, and what is his name that goes around?
Carey.
Drew Carey was out there on ice skates. He was trying to imitate Sam, but
I thought they'd
He didn't fall down.
Again.
That's not possible. Mr. Chair, when we were out there, it was the sun was shining. From up there on top, that's one of the most beautiful views in the county. People need to go out there and take a look at that.
If the sun ever shines again, is that part of it?
It'll shine again, Sam.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tamara Getch. I'm the Director of Community Services, and joined with me this morning is Mark Hunter. Mark's going to do the majority of the talking today, but I just wanted to do a little opening to The second item that's listed in the presentation, just about the budget proposal, and then Mark can answer a little bit of those questions as well. He's going to be presenting some more information on the conifer garden that is being proposed out at the gardens. Per the agreement between Oregon Garden Foundation and Marion County, annually the board establishes its annual budget in draft in November, and by the end of that month, which is today, they have agreements to present the draft budget to the Marion County Board of Commissioners for consideration. The final budget will not be adopted until January by the foundation members. And once it has been adopted, we will then bring it back to Marion County Board of Commissioners for consideration. This is also done with the City of Silverton, who is also a partner in the agreements between the foundation for the Oregon Garden Organization as well as Marion County. So in your packet, you have a draft budget that has been presented. It states at the top, says Oregon Garden Foundation 2017 budget proposal. Mark has done a great job in trying to simplify the documents to increase its board's members' understanding of the amount of resources and the sourcing of the resources that come into the budget. You'll see here that you have the revenue and expenditures that span over almost 3 full pages. The total gross revenue that's being proposed for 2017 is $855,000 plus, with some expenditures that are quite a bit under that, and then putting some monies in reserves. So without going line by line on that budget, this is, as I said, this is a proposed budget for your consideration. Any comments that you have or considerations that you would like the foundation to consider, we'll go back to the board over its December and January meetings. Mark, anything to add?
I would just add that, as Tamara says, the city of Silverton has this on their agenda for Monday night, this coming Monday, to give us their input and their approval process as well. So we're on track as far as the process that we're required to follow. So, and I would be glad to try and answer any of the questions that you have there. Excuse me. And with the budget and everything as we get into it. That being said, I will just jump into the budget thing first and get that done. But again, thank you for having me here. I want to, express my appreciation to the staff, who's had a lot of counsel and advice. It's been kind of a go-to relationship with Tamara and her department in terms of being able to get support and all that kind of thing. So appreciate all of that. When we started to do the proposal for the new budget, I felt like it very strongly that we needed to start to set goals for ourselves financially, rather than just create a budget that seems to be historical in nature. But we needed to start aligning ourselves especially over the next 18 months, with the agreement of the county's allocation that we get on an annual basis. Excuse me. And so we wanted to make sure that our budget was aligning with our goals, with the strategic plan that we developed earlier this year, and that we were making sure that we were addressing our strategic plan and this allocation agreement that we have with the county through our budgeting process, through the finances and everything. So we took a little different tact with the layout and the way it looks. If you're looking at the first page of the budget, it's the revenue sheet. It shows revenues on top, expenditures against those revenues underneath that, all on one page. But we have 4 columns with operating, project fund development, in general restricted in our endowment fund. We sorted them all out so that you can get a snapshot picture of where all the dollars were and where the expectation for them coming in was and where they're going to flow out. The project fund development, just for a little more clarification, that is in order to raise money like we are expecting to raise with the conifer garden expansion, you have to have money to raise money. So we created a separate budget for that campaign, and that's reflected in that column.
Excuse me, Mark, where is
Sure.
that? What line is that in the budget?
If you'll look at the revenue page, it's the second column over.
Oh, project fund development. Okay,
Project
thank you.
fund development,
Right.
yes. And so there's some expenses there. There's some salaries that we're gonna help monetize with this campaign. Because a fair amount of my time, a fair amount of Naomi's time will be spent on this campaign. So that column is what that reflects, is the budget for the conifer campaign. I'm pleased to say that all of that revenue has been, we've gotten commitments for all of that ahead of next year, so we're pleased with that. And I want to talk about our initial donation for that campaign here in a minute. The general restricted is a reflection of our restricted funds that we do hold in holding that were gifts to us that were restricted by the donor, or like the HEF fund, for example, the Horticulture Enhancement Fund, which creates an opportunity to fund hort programs within the garden. So that's what the general restricted is for. And then our endowment, it's one of the areas that we really expect to help grow over the next few years as we look at the future. Our expenses are reflected on this next page. We have all of our expenses there. And most of those come in our operating column, but there are expenses that are being distributed to the general restricted, to the project fund development and endowment, a minimal amount to endowment, so that those expenses are captured by those activities rather than all of it being operating expenses. Of course, in our case, the largest part of our operating budget is our salary, our payroll. This payroll does include our education program as it is now, and that's reflected in the general restricted. You go down to payroll, that $33,000 is to pay the educators for our education program. So our operating budget is actually relatively small. At the urging of our board members, including Sam, we increased our contingency fund, our contingency balance on the bottom to ensure that we have some type of contingency in place that's pretty significant at the end of the year or during the process of operations, that type of thing. We also created contingency for the conifer campaign, and in the general restricted is more of a balance than it is a contingency, but we do have that amount in our general restricted fund. And hopefully by the end of the year, my personal goal is to be over 100,000 endowment and get that program really started or really infused with money in 2017. The final page is what we're calling the restricted fund balance. That's the current balance of each of those restricted funds that are in there. We do have expected revenue for those funds. We expect to grow our funds because there's a need for those funds. There's some expenses to that fund, like fundraising, especially in the education area, and I'll speak to that in a few minutes. And then the budgeted release is actually money that's being designated. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth line down is the tram pathway. The board approved $50,000 last year through a gift that we got to be designated for the tram pathway. So the example that I'm giving is that budgeted release is that we know that that's committed. We know that that tram pathway is being built in 2017. So that monies will be released to that project next year. So that's an explanation of that column. And then by the end of the year, we hope to improve our balances in our restricted funds by about, it shows about $7,000 net because of some of the expenses or some of the budgeted release things that we have going on. I know if you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to try and answer them. Again, we're looking for the go-ahead to go forward with our budget for next year. And we feel like it supports the strategic plan and what we're trying to accomplish over the course of the next 3 years. One of the key goals for me that I've shared with board members is that we recognize the commitment that the county has made through the allocation for 5 years is significant. We also recognize that it's something that it may or may not be renewed depending on how we deal with that allocation. But one of the major things about this budget that we hope to gain over the next 3 years is moving towards a little more solvency operationally, so that we're not dependent on that allocation, yet we are creating more donor base, a stronger donor base, more monies for operation for the foundation as well. Although, of course, we would love to renew that in some way. But going forward, it's one of our major concerns is to ensure that our operating budget maintains the current staffing levels that we have, which is only 2 people, but it's significant considering the projects we have on the drawing board. So if there's any questions about the budget, I'd be glad to deal with that, and then I'll get through the rest of the report pretty quickly. So,
Sam?
If I could, Mark, this is probably more appropriate for a foundation meeting itself, but I'm just looking at it, thinking of it now. Membership dues, it's listed at $110,000. So what are the membership dues? Do you know what the amount is off the top of your head?
that's the total amount of membership dues that come into the foundation.
Right.
110,000, and that's based on about 2,500 members currently.
Okay.
At different ranges of membership, from $75 to $1,000 memberships.
And there's 2,500 members?
Correct.
Oh, I didn't.
Approximately.
It
There's
doesn't
2,500.
filter down to very much money is what I was getting at, but it goes other places, I take it.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't, 110,000, I thought it should be more. But anyway, so we have big events going on right now at the garden with Christmas in the garden in particular. And do we make an effort to reach out and try to increase membership at that time? Are we doing anything?
We do. If you follow the lights, as Christine said at our meeting, follow the lights to the end of the lights, the first set of lights, there's a booth there that's featuring membership, that's featuring our Pathway to Giving program, and other opportunities within the garden. So,
All right. Thank you.
Their hope is, that number of people that go through that is to gain some more membership.
More exposure.
For the first time, for a while anyway, part of the budget plan is that we came to agreement with Christine and Moonstone was that the foundation would be able to keep a small amount of the membership dues that come in to help underwrite salaries, particularly Naomi's position, because she does all the processing for the membership fees. So we're making a little effort to capture some of that to help with underwriting her position.
All right, thank you.
Any questions, Commissioner?
Thank
Yeah, Mark, just one of the things you had in your, go back to it here, in the, I think it was in your highlights of your objectives, the fiscal objectives, and you, number 2, the key objectives, I think you alluded to this, within 2 years, the Marion County Board Allocations Fund comes to a conclusion. Is that something that is in contract, or are you just speculating that? You alluded to that.
I am going off of the 5-year agreement that we have.
Okay,
We're
all
in
right.
the 4th year of that now.
Okay, because all intentions, I think, from myself is to make sure that the garden's successful, and
Right.
and obviously those things come up every year, but I just was curious if there was a contract or anything that was in place now. So, okay.
We do have as Mark was saying, we do have an economic development contract. that supports the Oregon Garden for up to 5 years. Mark just said we're in our 4th year, so
Okay.
that will be presented to the board for consideration if they would like to extend that commitment beyond the current contract.
Great. Thank you for your presentation and the fine tuning of this process that you're going through. And you've been with us like a year and a half now? Has it been that long?
A year full-time,
A year full-time?
and about a year and 4 months or so total, so.
Yeah, okay. You want to continue on?
Okay, so, yeah, I wanted to draw out just the quarterly report itself. I know there's a lot in there, and just mention that, you know, in my getting ready for my year review for this meeting, for a city council meeting that I presented at a couple of weeks ago, you know, this last year I think we've accomplished a lot. And we've set some clear directions. We've set the standards high in some cases. It's very ambitious goals, but I also think that they can be realistic and we can move forward with them. And as you know, anytime you redirect or set new strategic plans and goals, there's always some things that you have to question. Is our capacity to perform at the level it needs to be at? Is our donor base there? Is it expanding? Is our communication solid? So those are all things that we're working on going forward. This quarterly report, like I said, has a lot in it. There's a few things that I want to draw out. I'm willing to answer questions about any of it if you read through it and I don't mention it. But the things that I do want to talk about and I want to start with one thing that's not on here, was that we were able to raise money this year to remodel our offices. If you didn't know, for the first year of my tenure with the Garden Foundation, I worked from home, which wasn't a bad deal because it's 5 minutes from my front door to the visitor center, walking, you know, so it wasn't a bad thing, but we did not have a foundation presence at the garden. So we were able to raise some money and remodel our offices on a very tight budget and create foundation space. So there's space for myself, there's space for Naomi, and we have more of a foundation presence now. And when I need to bring a donor in or something like that, I'm able to do that now, and we have meeting space down at the NREC building or the education building. That's not in the report. I'm sorry that it's not, but that was a key thing that happened in September. HEF Fund's success, I think, is worth pointing out. That fund was designed to help with capital improvement projects in regards to horticultural projects in the garden. We launched that in May. We set a goal of $20,000. We reached that goal in October. So as you remember, 25% of that is being reinvested into the garden's operating budget next year. So that's $5,000 for their operating budget, with 75% remaining in the principal and continue to grow on an annual basis. We hope to have a nice emergency fund built up over the next 4 or 5 years. One of the things we're excited about, at least I'm excited about, is in addressing our education needs in our current agreements that we have. And I know those are all things that we're looking at moving forward. We need to diversify where those funds come from. Ken Hector, who you all may know as a past mayor of Silverton and a city council person that's stepping out of that role next month, has agreed to chair an education golf tournament next year, next October. And I think his resources are going to make that a really nice golf tournament for us and provide opportunity to raise some money for the education program. I think that if we rely too much on one source, and that being grant writing for education, there's always that opportunity that it may not come through. So Ken has graciously stepped up to the plate. He believes in education. He believes in the garden. He's been a long-time supporter of the garden, and he is really excited. He went out and played the golf course we're playing at next year yesterday with some people that he's recruiting for the committee. So, you know, he's excited about it. So we continue. I handed out copies of the Pathway to Giving brochure that's in front of you. physically in front of you. We continue to improve our collateral material. When I came on board, Moonstone does an awesome job of marketing events, marketing the garden, creating collateral material, but not so much for the foundation in the early part of my tenure. We didn't have a lot of support material. So this is an example of our support material that we're putting out. And it's starting to show dividends in that, as I talk about performance measurements, you'll see that. But in November alone, we had $1,000 worth of sponsorships through this program come in. And again, those dollars are all dedicated to Horticulture Enhancement Fund. And then I just want to point out on the second page of my quarterly report, I changed the metrics a little bit to reflect, and I just noticed that I put the wrong years on there. If you'll look at the first column, that should be 15. The second column should be 2016. But now that I've been here for 15 months, I have something to compare it to. So last year we raised, for example, $6,800 in events. That's O-Fest and 4th of July. This year, $9,200. So you show that you see a trajectory upward. Pathway to Giving last year, $450. This year, $4,500. So quarter to quarter, we're using your fiscal year quarter as a comparative analysis. So we're showing improvements in how we're doing things. And I also put on their planned gift conversations. I've had 3 in the last few months of planned gift conversations. Hopefully they will bear fruit over time. And those commitments will show up on this report on a quarterly basis as well. And then finally, the conifer expansion campaign. I've spent a lot of time with Christine, with Moonstone. I'm meeting with Dirk on Monday. I've spent time on the phone with him. And after the Pettit expansion, after putting a new lodge out there on the property or on his property adjacent to the garden, there's nothing that's higher priority for them than this conifer garden expansion. A little bit of background, it's something that started in 2008 and for whatever reason didn't really gain a lot of traction. So through the process of doing our strategic plan and prioritizing projects in the garden, the conifer garden expansion has been revitalized, and we're taking a look at it again. There's a really small picture, but I brought this poster with you. It's hard to see from a distance, I realize, but I just wanted to be able to point out a few things about the new design. We did a couple things. We minimized our expense for this project by taking out a major water feature that ran through the entire length of the project. We also took out the need for a pavilion, a nice sized pavilion, which was going to be in the center of this project. Both of those reduced the cost of this project significantly, as you can imagine. Our estimation, we still haven't got it all costed out yet, is going to be between $600,000 and $700,000 project. But the thing that was suggested by one of our volunteers, Doug Wilson, was let's take this opportunity to feature conifers that are native to Oregon and the Pacific Northwest. And so from that, the idea was hatched that, hey, let's feature the climate changes in Oregon. So over on the far left, as you look at this, is the coastal range. And this is a sand and a boardwalk across that. In the center is representative of the Columbia River Gorge. And then over here on the far right, the resort being over here, is representative of high desert. And in between will be the Cascades through a series of ridges that go through this project. From a fundraising perspective, that gives me an opportunity to reach out beyond the Willamette Valley and the central I-5 corridor up and down the state to all parts of the state to see if we can get some additional support for this type of project. By minimizing the expense, it's more of a doable project. The other thing that's important about this project is that we are going to do a campaign against it first before we turn any dirt on this. We don't expect to see groundbreaking on this for 2 more years, 2 years from January or February of next year. So we want to take the time to make sure that the financing is in place, that the fundraising is done, and that we have this project properly funded before we make any moves on it. To that end, this morning I actually had breakfast with CEO of the Oregon Association of Nurseries, and they are totally behind this project as a partner, as a key partner. He's excited to be a part of it, and they feel like that in terms of all the plant material that goes into this project, they can take that part of that project on. Also, the American Conifer Society, I've had several meetings with them, is a key partner in this, and they are going to step up and be a part of this project in a big way. As well as OFRI, our current education partner, they are very interested in making this a successful project. As well as I mentioned, Moonstone has put this on a high priority for them, and they're supportive of anything that we can do to make this project happen. So it's exciting. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we need to be extremely cautious in some areas, and we need to be moving forward and always upward with our projects and our programs. So that's kind of my update. It's a lot. I appreciate a little bit of extra time this morning to share with you what's going on.
Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I turned my microphone off. So this is addressed to Tammy. So I just actually caught the part on the cover page that talks about accepting the draft budget. This isn't an action item. This is a presentation. So explain to me what the expectation is here this morning.
So today is just that, yes, you agree with this draft agenda that and it gives you an opportunity to give input to the board, the foundation board, for consideration for its final budget, which would be then approved in January or accepted by the Board of Commissioners in January. This is what we've done for the last 2 years, 3 years, as we've come to recognize that this is a process that comes through to the board in November.
Right. But it hasn't come to management update or anywhere where we can actually dig into it. So I don't feel comfortable saying that you just presented it here today and that I've accepted it. I mean, it's a nice first cut at it for me to review. But I really would like the opportunity to actually dig into it. This isn't usually the forum that we do these types of things in. So
We can bring it to management update.
I would prefer that, yeah. Thank
All right.
you.
And you would like that before the final, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if I hadn't, because it was under presentation, I was just assuming it was part of a presentation.
Right.
So we don't take action under presentations.
Just a procedure question. Have we in the past done a formal acceptance of the Oregon Garden Foundation budget
Yes.
at the board? Okay.
At a board meeting?
Yes.
Into under presentation?
It was, both of these were together, and I'm assuming that it was probably a decision was made at agenda planning for it to be here. The paperwork was jointly submitted.
Okay, I don't recall that, so.
Mr. Chair, when we did agenda planning, I assumed it was just a presentation about the garden, not an attempt to gain any acceptance of a budget. So, and I think it's important we have the presentation for the public about the garden. And if you don't mind, I have a question for Mark.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I've got one too.
We have the map of the Conifer Garden. I'm amazed that the thing hasn't taken off already, because when you walk through there, it's a beautiful display. And it was amazing to me that I thought it would be, because I didn't think a bunch of trees would, but it's really a beautiful display. Can you, Mark, show us on that where the current Conifer Garden is?
Sure. The current Conifer Garden is on the left side, and the resort is up here on this side, right here.
Yeah, right.
This is a current tram pathway that the tram goes on for the tour. There's going to be a kiosk right here, an informational kiosk. And I neglected to mention that this is an open air meeting area The hope is that we'll be able to have small group meetings and/or weddings there.
So, Mr. Chair, it's a very beautiful display, and I think that the way he's talking about expanding it will make it even better.
Thank you. And Mark, I know the Nursery Association is really involved, and I imagine Mr. Stone, is that who you met with, Jeff? And as I was looking up, because me being somebody who doesn't understand everything very quickly, I looked up conifer in Wikipedia. In the last sentence, it says there are also a great economic value of timber and paper production. And I'm wondering if we've contacted some of the forest organizations and groups to see if they would want to participate in helping with this, and as Oregon's,
Right.
crop.
Absolutely. Actually, the nice thing about our offices is there's a wall between us and Ofri.
Perfect.
And they are supportive of this for that very reason, plus the added education value it brings to their programs. So,
Great. Okay.
They're going to help us reach out to that industry as well.
Anything else? Good? Thank you very much for your presentation, and we'll see a management update at some point in time here in the
Thank you.
future. Okay. Okay, our next agenda item is, we're going to pass on the presentation. Travel Salem is unable to be with us this morning. So we'll go right into the consent calendar, and I believe, Commissioner, it's your turn.
Great. Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd move today's consent calendar. Under Community Services, approve an order reappointing Commissioner Sam Brentano to the Oregon Garden Foundation Board with a term ending January 31st, 2019. Under Health, approve Amendment Number 1 to the contract for services with Pelton Projects, Inc. to add $284,000 in funding to provide personal care and habilitative services for the county's community and provider services through June 30th, 2017. Approve orders appointing Health Department staff to various boards, committees, and roles. Approve an order appointing Commissioner Sam Brentano as Ambulance Service Area Plan Administrator. Under Public Works, approve the dedication of a 1-foot reserve strip for public road purposes known as Reserve Block A, Ditter Hill Tracks. Receive hearings officer's recommendation approving zone change, case number 16-002, Lancaster Opportunities LLC. And receive hearings officer's recommendation denying zone change comprehensive plan amendment, case number 16-001, Gray.
I was gonna second it.
You're gonna be a busy guy.
Yeah, I see that. In fact, that's just what I'm thinking. Rod Calkins has mistakenly come into the chamber here one last time, and I note that his retirement party's this afternoon. And I'd kind of like to hear him from one more time. I'd like a little advice on this ambulance service area, and I just think I need this opportunity. So could you, Rod, would you explain what it does and how happy you are to be done with it, or just what it is that you're passing on? I just wanted to talk to you one more time.
Good morning, Commissioners. Rod Calkins, Marion County Health Department Administrator for a few more days. Yeah, I knew it was risky to come down here, Sam. But I wanted to make sure that you guys passed on all my responsibilities for the various committees and things like that so I could sleep easy in retirement. And I especially wanted to come down here and congratulate you on your appointment to the August position of Ambulance Service Area Administrator. Thank
So
you.
I might make a comment. It looks like Rod's leaving it in good shape. From what I hear so far, everything's going swimmingly as we get to look at the ambulance service areas, and I'm not hearing of any issues. Of course,
That's
he
my
might
story, and
not
I'm
tell me
sticking
that
to it.
prior to after we approve this change. But you've been through some difficult times. I don't need to highlight them all again, but it hasn't been a job without some issue and concern, and I know you've done a terrific job of navigating a way through that.
Well, thank you. And I think, ambulance services are really essential services within our community. And I don't think that many people realize that the county has a role in regulating those within our community. It's been a challenging job. I think that a lot of the credit needs to go to the ambulance service area advisory committee that has really come together over the last 10 years and look for ways to improve ambulance services, I think, and provide service where things haven't been so well-staffed at times, like Idana, Detroit, we've talked about many times. Turner had a rough go of it for a while there when they spun back out from Wafra. You know, both of those situations are on solid footing right now and going well. So, yeah, it's been a nice ride, and I think we're in a position where we're up for renewal of 5-year contracts starting in 2018, and that process is already starting now because we have to consider revisions to the plan every 5 years and things like that. And I'm sure with the help of the committee, you'll do just great.
I appreciate that confidence. I wish I had it. Fine. All
Thank
right,
you very
well,
much for taking that
unless
on.
somebody else has a question for Rod, I'll let him go.
Mr. Chair, I think that Commissioner Brentano needs to know that he will have staff support, not from me, but from the health department. And Rod has left some help for him there.
Great.
So all the requests for boundary changes are coming in and being collected by our administrative services specialist, and Rick Sherman is going to be back next week from his medical leave, and he'll be helping you brief and get ready for the committee meeting first part of January.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. That was
Any,
a long wait for a
any
second.
further discussion on the second, on this motion for the consent calendar? And only thing I would say is, Rod, thank you so much for your service, and really appreciate all you've done since I know I've been here, and you've been here a lot longer than I have, but good luck in your retirement.
Well, thank you.
We'll all be
I
in
really
this.
appreciate the opportunity I've had here over the last 13 years, and
Yeah.
it's been a great ride. But it is time for me to go do something else.
Yeah. We all understand that. Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right. And we have a new ambulance service plan administrator.
I am so honored to be sitting in his presence. It's just,
Oh, this is going to.
All right. We will open a public hearing for legislative,
Joe has a
You have an action item ahead of that, I believe.
I was thinking that was the same one that we were going to come back to. I get it. Okay, we do have a Public Works action item, consider approval of an ordinance adopting amendments to the Salem-Keizer urban growth boundary. Joe, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore from Public Works. This matter comes before you at the request of the City of Salem for consideration and concurrence in an urban growth boundary amendment to add land in Polk County to the Salem-Keizer urban growth boundary for right-of-way purposes for a third bridge crossing of the Willamette River. Marion County's participation in this process comes as a result of the shared urban growth boundary between Salem and Keizer. Both of the city's comprehensive plans recognize that amendments to the shared boundary must be concurred on by all 4 jurisdictions: Salem, Keizer, Polk County, and Marion County. On October 12, 2016, the board participated in a joint hearing with the other jurisdictions involved to receive testimony of interested persons. The board left the county's record open until October 19th for all testimony. On October 26th, the board, at a regularly scheduled public meeting, considered whether to concur in the amendments of the Salem urban growth boundary. After considering all the evidence in the record and discussing the issue, the board approved the concurrence of the amendments and directed staff to return with an ordinance reflecting its decision. Before you today is that ordinance. Because the City of Salem must receive the county's decision before its final ordinance reading, which is anticipated to be December 5th, staff recommends the board adopt the ordinance before you today by emergency procedure by reading the title twice. I'll try to answer any questions.
I have no
questions. We all participated at great length in this. Any questions?
No, I just lost my place on the internet here. There we go.
I might ask, just, I've looked through it, is there anything different in the final ordinance that we haven't discussed, or concept, anything? Fine. Then Chair Cameron, I would make a motion that we do approve this ordinance adopting amendments to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary.
This is by emergency
Yeah,
procedure.
okay, I was wondering,
We
it's
did
not
by
listed
title
here, then by
twice.
emergency only. And so the motion then would be to move that we read it twice by title only.
Okay, I'm trying to, and before I second it, so where is the place on the documents where it says an ordinance here? See all the chapter things?
In a matter of the ordinance amending,
The ordinance itself. Let's see.
All right, so, oh, I'm on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
That probably explains it. Sorry. Sometimes paper is faster.
if you have lots of conifers.
Okay, I'm in the right place.
Got it?
So I will second the motion, and I'd like to make a comment before we vote, if we could.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. The motion is to read the ordinance.
By title only
by-
twice.
By title
Oh,
only
okay,
twice.
I'll save my comment till we're actually
Okay.
voting on the thing.
Any further discussion on that particular motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, okay. And the chair will read by title only twice. In a matter of the ordinance amending the Marion County Comprehensive Plan by adopting amendments to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary by including approximately 35.7 acres of land in Polk County into the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary and declaring an emergency. Read it a second time. In the matter of ordinance amending the Marion County Comprehensive Plan by adopting amendments to the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary by including approximately 35.7 acres of land in Polk County into the Salem-Kaiser urban growth boundary and declaring an emergency.
And now I'd make a motion to approve the ordinance that we just read by title.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to approve the ordinance?
Well, yes, because it is kind of anticlimactic here. I just wanted to put on the record, and I think Joe did a very brief summary at the outset of this, but this was a very large public hearing with a lot of jurisdictions: Kaiser, Planning Commission, City of Kaiser, City of Salem, Polk County Planning Commission, Polk County and Marion County, in a lengthy hearing where we took massive amounts of testimony. I've got a notebook up in my office full of documentation. All of the jurisdictions are now going through this process. So just wanted to make sure that people, if they were listening, were aware that this isn't something that we're just doing all of a sudden or taking lightly. There was a lot of process that went through this, and we did put our comments on the record when this came forward a few weeks ago and directed staff to come back with the ordinance. Second thing is, and I said that at the last meeting, is that this action is not deciding whether or not we have a bridge, a third bridge. That decision has already been made. But this particular land use action is essential for us to move forward to the next step of getting that bridge. And so I'm very supportive of it.
Okay.
We had a meeting yesterday, Salem-Kaiser Area Transportation Study, and it was listed that it sounds like every entity is approved. It sounds like Salem's still out. I forget what they said about that, but if you recall, one of the little complications or strange to me was Polk County, both their planning commission and the board needed to approve, or they had to have a process, and that's happened. So it does look like it will be approved by all.
Great. Okay, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, so that passes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
it's my understanding the city of Salem will adopt it Monday.
okay.
I think they had to wait for all of us to do it first before they do theirs. That's why it's probably still out.
Great. Before we open up a public hearing, I just wanted to recognize somebody who walked in. My dad, Gene Cameron, just welcome. It's good to have you here. And I got a special something for you that I got to get out of my car. So it's great to see you, Dad. We're going to open a public hearing for legislative amendment 16-00 zone code amendments regarding marijuana businesses. And Joe, you're up again.
Good morning, Commissioners. Once again, for the record, Joe Fenimore. On November 8, 2016, the citizens of Marion County passed Measure 24404 to allow medical marijuana businesses in unincorporated Marion County, and did not pass Measure 24405 to allow recreational marijuana businesses. The zone codes now need to be amended to regulate the medical marijuana businesses. On March 2, 2016, the board adopted Resolution 16R-4, initiating revisions to the Marion County zone codes if the citizens of the county elected not to continue the prohibition on marijuana businesses. The matter was referred to the Marion County Planning Commission for a recommendation. The commission held a public hearing on August 16, 2016, and at a subsequent work session on August 23rd, issued a recommendation on the types of regulations that should be applied to marijuana businesses. The recommendation was presented to the board at a work session on September 13th, and at that work session and a subsequent meeting on September 27th, the board directed staff to prepare code amendments and schedule a public hearing for today. The proposed amendments have been prepared and are attached with deletions and strike-through, additions in bold, underline, and staff comments in gray italics. Regarding medical marijuana production, the proposed amendments would allow the production of medical marijuana as farm use in the EFU and SA zone, associated farm use and special agriculture. However, it must be conducted indoors and have visible grow lights turned off between the hours of 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Producing would also be allowed in all the industrial zones upon attaining a conditional use permit. The specific conditional use standards in the urban code are added to Chapter 1632 and in the rural code to Chapter 17120. They include requirements that the activity be conducted indoors, emit no light or odors detectable on neighboring properties, comply with the county's alarm system control ordinance, that the person or entity shall keep all real property and personal tax accounts current for the business for which it is a taxpayer, no minors allowed on the premise, owners and employees must pass a background check, no consumption allowed on the business premise unless otherwise allowed for employees under OAR 330-008-120, and must comply with the Oregon Indoor Clean Air Act, which prohibits tobacco smoking indoors. Regarding medical marijuana processors, small-scale medical marijuana processors would be allowed in the EFU and SA zones upon obtaining an administrative review approval. This activity would have to be conducted indoors with no visible odors or lights detectable on adjacent neighboring properties. Other medical marijuana processors would be allowed in all the industrial zones, once again upon attaining a conditional use permit, but also be subject to those same standards were outlined for producers. The third type of medical marijuana business is the dispensaries. The dispensaries would be allowed in all of the commercial zones, except for the commercial office zone, upon obtaining a conditional use permit. The standards are similar to what we're proposing for processors and producers. The facility may not be located within 100 feet of property containing a pre-kindergarten, Head Start program, community learning center, certified child care facility, relief nursery, public park, public or private elementary, secondary, or career school, primarily attended by minors.
Joe, did you say 100 feet? Because it's written as 1,000.
It's 1,000 feet, excuse me. If I said 100, I meant 1,000. It is written, 1,000 is correct.
Just for the record.
May not be open any day before 7 a.m. or after 10 p.m. Once again, she'll comply with the alarm ordinance. Keep the taxes updated. No minors are allowed unless the minor is an Oregon Medical Marijuana Program cardholder and is accompanied by a parent or guardian. And no consumption is allowed on the business premise. Those standards basically were what we had for the ban exemption permit for dispensaries. Since the idea is to do away with that permit and bring them into the land use system as a conditional use, so we brought all those requirements forward out of that ordinance. Other proposed amendments include clarifying that medical marijuana businesses cannot be home occupations. They cannot be used to justify a farm dwelling in the farm zones. And farm stands, agritourism events may not be used for the sale of or promote the sale of marijuana products or extracts. I'll be happy to try and answer any questions.
Any questions?
I think we have, this is a public hearing, right? So I don't have any questions
Yeah.
until after we
Come
hear
back.
from
Okay.
folks. Yeah.
So on our sign-up sheet, I have nobody signed up for public comment, but we have a couple people here that want to give them opportunity if they want to make any comments. This is the time for public comments. If you'd like, you can come up to the microphone and introduce yourself. Dad, you don't want to make any comments about marijuana? Okay. Okay, so Joe, why don't you come on back up?
Questions?
All right. Questions for Joe?
I have none, just comments. I know the amount of work and effort seems like
this is-
covered all
Oh,
the
the-
things we've
This
talked
is
about.
it.
We have nobody signed up?
Nobody signed up for public comment? Nobody
Okay, I
wanted to make
blinked and I
comment?
missed the public hearing. Yeah, I probably do have some, but let me just get to the right spot here. Okay, so let me just paraphrase what we're doing here today, okay? So
Okay.
first of all, Marion County has an existing ordinance that covers medical marijuana facilities, correct? The state law allowed current medical marijuana dispensaries to sell both recreational and medical marijuana through the end of this year, is that correct?
Correct. December 31st is the last day
Right.
they can do that.
At the end of the year, depending on what the jurisdiction has decided in terms of what governs that jurisdiction, medical marijuana dispensaries will no longer be able to sell recreational marijuana.
In unincorporated Marion County, that is correct.
Well,
Yes.
anywhere,
Correct.
correct?
Yes.
Depending on what the jurisdiction governs.
Correct.
Because the voters of Marion County elected not to allow recreational marijuana within the unincorporated areas of Marion County, that means that there will not be recreational facilities, businesses, or whatever, set up in the unincorporated areas.
Correct.
But that, and that also governs processing, growing, all of those other types of things. So this particular ordinance then had to be revised because why?
Because we still, it allowed the medical marijuana businesses.
Right,
So-
but we already had medical marijuana businesses, so why are we revising the
We have
ordinance?
medical marijuana dispensaries only. We never had processors.
Correct, okay, so are we changing anything with regard to the dispensaries?
We took all the dispensary requirements and rolled them into the zone code. So no, we are not changing anything.
So all of the things that we had before that were part of the medical marijuana ordinance, nothing has changed from that,
None of the requirements that we had for the business, correct?
okay? You sure about that?
Could
I'm
clarify that, for dispensaries, nothing has changed.
correct for dispensaries. We basically took
But for
everything
grows-
out of
Well, I'll get there.
what's it, 525080.
Okay, so yeah, all of those are the same.
Yeah.
Other amendments clarify cannot be home occupations. Okay, was that in there before?
That, that was we were allowing the dispensaries only in the CR zones,
Okay.
CR and CG zone. So this is just making it clear that you cannot come in and apply for a home occupancy. And that was out of state law also.
Okay. Income cannot be used to justify a farm dwelling,
That's out of statute or state law also.
right? Farm stands may not, okay, all right. So really what we're doing then is we're adding to this ordinance provisions around growing and processing for medical marijuana?
And sell, yes.
Okay. And the Oregon Health Authority right now governs medical marijuana.
They do, and the state also said that it is farm use, and we can regulate time and place, not
Okay,
manner,
all right. So these are time and place regulations
for
for
producing in
producing.
the farm zones. In the industrial zones, it's not farm use, it's a marijuana producer. So we can do other things in the industrial zones. That's why the industrial zones have additional regulations
Okay.
through the conditional use process.
And if someone violates one of these provisions, so we get a complaint from someone saying there's.
Lights are on.
Yeah, lights are on, or they're growing, it just looks like they're growing lots, because there's a canopy requirement. Is that for recreational?
That's a state requirement, recreational, yes.
Right, so for medical, it's just so many plants, remind me what that.
That's my understanding, is you can have a certain number of plants based on the number of cards you're
Right.
growing for.
Right, so are code enforcement officers then going to be responsible for reviewing that
That is correct.
and governing that? But it's probably on a complaint basis primarily, right? We're not
Correct.
going out and inspecting marijuana facilities and that type of thing. And then if we find out that there's a recreational grow or something, that's completely not allowed in Marion County. Is that our code enforcement also that would go out?
I
and
would
do that?
assume our code enforcement would contact OLCC at that point, since they are regulating the recreational growing.
Okay, all right. Just wanted to
It's
clarify.
still the Wild West out there.
Yeah,
We'll
you know, I was
figure this
just
out.
trying to make sure that everybody understood exactly what we were doing here today.
Okay.
All right.
Any other? So this is just public hearing today, right?
You're right, we're not
gonna
actually
adopt
approving
it
anything.
yet.
Well, we need to close the public hearing, I would think, right? That
Right.
would be the motion.
Yeah. Whose turn is it?
I'll move that we
Right.
close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all right. We're closed, and we will read the calendar.
Wait.
Oh,
I thought we
There
were
has to be
approving.
some sort of an adoption
Yes.
process, Mr. Chair, so
So the plan that I had anyway was to bring it back to you in ordinance form in 2 weeks to adopt by emergency procedure.
Right, yeah,
Fine.
yeah. Okay.
that,
Yeah, we don't have to actually put that in the motion, right?
no, that's correct. But
Right.
just to clarify that the actual action will be coming back.
Come back on the 4th.
as an
Emergency
ordinance.
procedure
It'll be
in 2 weeks.
Emergency procedure
Right.
so that it would take effect prior to the beginning of the calendar year.
okay, good. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
And Gloria, thanks for clarifying that. Today's Wednesday calendar at 2:30 will be at Capitol Community Television, taping at 575 Trade Street Southeast. Also, Wednesday at 4 o'clock, our health director, Rod Calkins, who was here with us this morning, giving up his ambulance service baton to Commissioner. We'll have a retirement party for him at 4 o'clock, from 4 to 6:30, Marion County Health Department, 2421 Lancaster Drive. And Thursday, the 1st of December, wow, time's flying, at 10:30 a.m., department head and elected officials meeting here in this building on the 5th floor in the Commissioner's boardroom. I'd like to call it the ballroom, as I always do.
usually do.
Usually call it the ballroom. And on Thursday, the 1st at 4 o'clock, Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative Task Force meeting at the Kaiser Civic Center at 930 Chamawa Road, Northeast Kaiser. On December 2nd at 2 p.m., it's this Friday, Mid-Willamette Homeless Initiative Task Force Public Safety Subcommittee. And the location is in the Silverton Conference Room here on the 5th floor. And on the 5th, which is Monday at 8:30, we have our calendar review here in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor. Also on Monday, December 5th at 9 a.m., management update in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor. Monday, the 5th at 10 a.m., a work session on solid waste systems, Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor. On Tuesday, the 6th at 9:30 a.m., work session federal agenda planning with CFM here on the 5th floor. Tuesday at 5:30 PM, Solid Waste Management Advisory Council. Holiday dinner at the Bonaventure Salem Transitional Care North Dining Room, 3445 Boone Ferry Southeast. On Wednesday, the 7th, we're back here at 9 a.m. for our board session, and Wednesday at 12 p.m., Marion County Woodburn meeting at Luis's Taqueria at 523 Front Street in Woodburn for some good Mexican food. Okay, and welcome back from the holiday week. Any things you want to chat about?
Don't just hang up.
Don't hang up.
No, I'm leaving for Eugene tomorrow morning, an annual association of, I always do it wrong, I get AOC and this one mixed up, but it is the Timber Board. And we're quite excited. It's always, the annual meeting's an important one. We elect new officers.
It's ONC?
Yes, ONC, I do it wrong.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hyde from Columbia County wasn't reelected, so for the first time in a long time, we'll elect a new chair. And I think it'll probably be, well, I shouldn't probably say that, but probably somebody from Douglas County. But I think there'll be a lot of excitement with the elections just being passed, and perhaps we'll finally truly see some movement in timber production in Oregon. And I'm really looking forward to hear what those suppositions are, and hopeful.
Good.
Okay. Well, went on a tour yesterday afternoon with Nancy Rickenbach from Willamette Valley Community Health of our Psychiatric Crisis Center. And I would say she was just very impressed, number one, with the way that it's organized and operates, and also the extreme need that it fills in our community. So we had a great opportunity to sit down with Anne Marie Banfield and learn more about what happens there, and it's just a great resource in our community.
Well, it was a good short week last week, but
Commissioner Carlson didn't get to hear us gloat over last weekend's ball game. We could do that again.
oh yeah, before you got here, I talked about wearing my tie for Victory Day, and then it turned into Victory Week, and then Victory Month, and now we're thinking it's like a year long.
Well, decade's been mentioned. Okay?
Decades.
Only
We
by
can't-
me, but
we
it
gotta-
has been mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, but somebody said you can't talk about basketball, so it's always a diversion when the truth gets in your eyes, so. Yeah, it's gonna be, we got a lot on our agenda. We had a really good planning meeting this week out at the Oregon Garden, and reviewed some of the things we got done last year and some of the things we still need to work on. So it's a good week, good beginning of the week. Anything else?
I wish there was. I don't want to end.
I just want to know if you shot any ducks this weekend.
I shot at some ducks,
Okay,
Kevin.
it was your aim. It wasn't them.
Do you get assists? Because I'm pretty sure I had an
Assist.
assist. Does that count?
Okay, we're going to adjourn.